So here we are. I'm with Michele Assarasakorn, and otherwise known as M.Sassy K. Hi, Michele.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm actually wanting you to start talking about your name, if you could share with me how your name M.Sassy K came about.
Well, it's always been kind of intimidating for anybody to see my full last name. And so I thought, since my name is going to be in covers or in credit pages with other artists, I didn't feel like taking up so much space, and it was just easier for people to remember me as M.Sassy K. So
Got it. Although it is a pretty cool name.
thank you. I think it came from
Both are.
my last name being shortened to Sassy Rassikorn instead of Assarasakorn, so I just shortened it even more and took out the Rassi, so it's just Sassy and K.
Right. So are you sassy?
Not as much anymore, I think. I mean, I just turned 31, and so I don't know if I have license to be as sassy as I was back in my 20s.
You know what? Take it from me. I'm way past 31. I'm still sassy.
The sassy movement.
Yeah, I think you can get away with it pretty much for your whole life if you wanted to. Anyway, so I learned about you through your work on Isola. As a colorist on the series, and I was wondering if you could tell me just how you got the gig and just about what it's been like to work on these issues. They're really beautiful.
Thank you. And so Isola is a collaboration project between Carl Kerschel and Brendan Fletcher, who I've worked with for a long time in DC's Gotham Academy for that book. And so I met Carl at TCAF right after I graduated. And back then I was still doing freelance for animation background paintings for little ads and little shorts. And so I approached Carl at TCAF and said, I really love your work and I would love to work with you someday. And there just happened to be a position open with the comic he was drawing called Gotham Academy that required more painterly backgrounds. And so it was very lucky that we found each other and it was the right fit for the book. And so after working on that book for a few years, I think we built such a good working relationship that they kind of work with me on their other projects as well. And Isola is just one of them so far. Yeah.
That's great. And so you were saying you graduated. So you graduated when?
In 2011, I think.
And what program did you graduate from?
I graduated from the concept art program. I initially joined Max for the Sequential Arts program, and I switched over because I basically love background painting and painting in general. So it's kind of strange that I came full circle and ended up working in comics because I thought I was going to be working on games and film, which I still do on the side, but right now my bread and butter is basically in the comic world.
Yeah. Wow, isn't that great?
Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? Exactly. Well, you know, it's interesting because I do talk to parents who are like, what? My kid wants to become a comic book artist. And they look at me and very skeptical. And I just tell them, yeah, it is possible.
It is. And it's a lot broader than you think too. I mean, there are so many, all the skills I think you learn in school with the foundations, everything is applicable. It's so broad that you can really just leap into different careers as you progress as an artist. And there's no fixed career you need to be in. Nobody expects you to be, because it gets boring after a while doing one thing, right? So it's pretty natural for artists in the industry to evolve. I've seen a lot of crossovers in various industries here.
Yeah, same. And I think too, it's also nice because it means that you can, it sounds to me like what you did was you gravitated towards where your interest area was, like you approaching someone.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a really good way to go about it. Not like, where are the jobs, but what do I want to go after?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important for you to understand and do your research before graduating, and know what you want to apply for and the kind of ladder you would be climbing, and where there is a cross section with careers, because I think it's so important as just a self-employed artist who isn't working under a company to know where your limitations are and if you could push past that or not. You're your own business person, so you have to understand what the market wants, what sort of requirements you have to have in order to get the job you want. And it's all a competition, so it's about also marketing yourself in the most attractive way possible for employers.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can we go back a bit and just
Yeah.
talk about how you got into this profession in the first place? I mean, you're kind of in illustration now, but like you said, concept art or just being like a career artist. When do you kind of have a memory of kind of the first time when you're like, yes, I want to pursue this path?
Oh my God. During the first couple of years after I graduated, I remember being so confused and quite disheartened because the career I thought I wanted was so out of reach. And I just felt like it was a vicious cycle of graduating and trying to apply for the job you want, but then needing the experience to get the job, but not being able to get any experience because no one's willing to hire you. And so I think it evolved over time once I understood what where the stepping stones were. So I kind of set a goal to make sure I hit the mark, the achievable the next step, and do it well and make good connections as I progress. And so I think networking is a big part of it. And I went from designing and background painting, graphic design, background painting, into doing some simple character concepts, and then matte painting for like just a random thing for film. And eventually I got comfortable with background painting. And so when I applied for comics, I sort of found my own little way of working that set me apart from just a generalist. And then that kind of leapt into a different career, which I just started on very recently, which is drawing comics, which I never thought I'd end here, because it's I've been so interested in painting this whole time. And so I think it's sorry, I totally lost track of your question. Did I answer your question?
Well, no, I was asking how you got started. You know, did you kind of, when you knew you wanted to pursue this path of being an artist. I'm assuming it went back even before you ended up going to school. So that was kind of like, you know, or your inspirations. Just kind of, you know, I like to find out from people when that moment or time in their life and they're like, yes, I'm doing this.
Oh yeah. I think I've always chased the thing that I enjoyed doing most, that I didn't feel like I was working. And so before I even came to Max, I was debating whether I wanted to learn languages, be a full-time baker, because I went to cooking school before that, or pursue an art career. And there was never a specific career that I aimed for, but all I knew was that I really enjoyed creating art and learning the theory and practicing art. And so I think I just chase that kind of feeling all the time. And I think without that passion and enjoyment out of it, it would turn into a very stressful and toxic thing that you can't sustain, right? It has to be enjoyable for it to be sustainable.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So you're originally from Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me about like how you chose MTM and also your experience of coming to Canada, you know, what it was like to leave home and start fresh in a new place?
It wasn't so much of a culture shock for me because I grew up bilingual, and I was in high school in New Zealand before I came to Canada. But the thing that was so cool was the freedom, and I think especially in Max because it's a smaller school with a smaller class size, you really felt like they treated you like adults already. There was a high level of professionalism, and I think that helped carry me through looking for work, because it already felt like I was working. I had this professional relationship with my instructors, and it was almost like you were trying to prove yourself and stand out, compete in a way with the rest of the students. But I chose Max because it was a smaller school, and it was one of the first schools, I think, that offered an illustration program for comic books. And I initially wanted to study illustration for manga, even though that's not really a thing, but that was what I was interested in when I was in Thailand. And instead of going to Japan, I decided I spoke English already, I might as well go to North America. So that's how I landed in Canada.
Mm-hmm. And how is, I mean, I know it's been a while, and so Canada's now your home. How was it at first, just for international students, looking at doing this, making this step, leaving their home and coming to Canada? Just what was it like for you?
It was quite smooth, I'd say. There were a lot of resources that I was able to access. I found everybody so friendly and accommodating and informative. I think that there were some visa and student visas and things that every student should do as much research as they can before they come to commit to that. And also, for me, there was like a small hiccup where I thought maybe I could stay and work in Canada after I graduated, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. And so I had to kind of hire consultants to help push me through that. And it all went fine. It was a long journey. I'm now a citizen finally after 10 plus years of living here. And I think it's definitely worth pursuing if you come here and you want to pursue a career in this industry, because it is booming in this side of the world.
Right. I think that's really good advice, though, and for people to know what they're getting into.
Absolutely.
And not just our students, but I know people in general who decide to come here to Canada, and it's a lengthy process.
It is.
Yeah, but that's great advice. Know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Research. You
Do the
might have to
reach out to people. There are very helpful communities out there that could answer your questions for free, even. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also another good piece of advice. And I think I don't know about you, but to me, Toronto, I was born and raised here, but it seems to me like it's such a multicultural city. Like there really is everybody here. And
Yeah.
so that's what we also say to our students who are coming. There are people from where you're from here. You can find that community, and I think that's also helpful when people are coming from wherever they're coming from. Whether that's the community to food, to places to shop and buy groceries with certain ingredients, just things like that do make a difference.
Oh yeah, they do. And I think it really just creates like a really friendly community because everybody's super understanding of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if you can talk about, so once you graduated and then just talk about your experience coming out of school and maybe how you feel, you touched on this a little bit before, but how you feel that Max, the Mutt helped you kind of prepare for a career as a career artist.
So when I graduated, I recall a couple of people in the industry who came in to help talk about the industry and what sorts of things to prepare for. For example, what kind of portfolio they're looking for. I personally reached out to someone who came to talk to school to ask for a mentorship because I knew I had a special case where I might not be as attractive a candidate because I was an international student and it required so much more for a company to go out of their way to hire me. And so under this mentorship, I think I was able to learn a lot about the business side of it and the kind of manage my expectations of what I'm going into. And I think that has enabled me to find jobs and kind of market myself in a way where it was beneficial for my experience. For example, going out of my way to get internships, unpaid internships that isn't illegal for international students to do. This is important for work experience, and it's important for networking, where you really have to make a good impression with companies. So they think I'm still working with clients I've interned for over 10 years ago. Like, they still reach out to me to give me some work, just from like the assertion of like, okay, I'm willing to learn, I want to know. And I think Max the Mutt was able to bring in enough industry people to kind of help kickstart your way in building connections, whether it's like the industry nights and having people from different companies to talk to you. I think it's really good to take advantage of those connections.
Absolutely. And I think you make a good point too. I mean, I know that there's kind of debate about unpaid internships.
I know.
But to me, you know, what they are is you're saying, I'm willing to do this, and it's a bit of an investment
It is.
on your part, but also on their part too, to give someone a chance. And, you know, more often than not, I've heard like, what this, as you're just pointing out, all these years later, you're still benefiting from that. So when you think about it, it's kind of like short-term pain for long-term gain.
Absolutely. And it's also, you can negotiate however you want to get payments as well. But in my case, I was an international student, so I couldn't do it legally. I had no choice, but I thought maybe I was so inexperienced that I didn't feel like I deserved to be paid anyway. I'm there to learn, to understand. And it was 2 weeks, you know, 2 to 3 weeks per internship. I was willing, I could afford that time just to understand the industry better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Can you talk about maybe, since you touched on it, just what it's like to be a freelancer, and you know, what are some of the things that you feel would be helpful for younger artists starting off and saying, yeah, I want to do freelance work. Maybe some what it's like for you, and maybe some tips going into that.
Well, I guess the first most important one is probably do your research. With being a freelancer means that you are your own business. Therefore, you should be aware of taxes, of some like foundation in accounting, of managing time management is really important. And also things like your routine and your mental health, your physical health. That sort of thing is super important to letting you work at your full capacity all the time and not burn out. I remember the first 5 or 6 years at the beginning, I would burn myself out constantly because I thought that I had this scarcity mindset of like, okay, there's not going to be any more jobs. Therefore, I should do 3 to 4 at one time. And I just realized I was losing steam by the end of those years. And so I actually had to plan out and manage my time. And from a business point of view as well, from a freelancer, you have to think about the income you're making. And so it's not about just working on a project to fulfill what you think it should look like without considering how much money you're putting into it. So like time you put into a project is time lost on another project that could be income. So those sorts of things are very important. And I know it's intimidating for anybody starting out to even, you know, imagine themselves doing multiple projects at a time when they don't have any clients yet. But I think that you have to think ahead and think about the structure you want to work in before you actually take on jobs, just in case when you do get more jobs, it's already at the back of your mind and your time management would be so much more professional. You could anticipate how busy your schedule is going to be, and that way you could realistically plot out how much money, how much work you have coming your way in the year.
Yeah, no, you've raised some really good points.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's, you know, and from personal experience too, used to be a freelance artist, and you know, one thing that you hit on that really resonates is just that feeling like you have to say yes to everything, but that actually kind of, it does burn you out, and it means that for the jobs that you're doing, maybe you're not doing as good a job. And so it's really important, as you're saying, like to be very clear, you know, and also that I like the other piece of advice about planning and budgeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that is really good to know, like, you know, even what, you know, what do I need to earn?
Yeah.
What do I need? What do I want to earn? And having those goal setting, you know, I don't think I did that at the beginning. I was just like, I just got to make money, you know?
Yeah.
and
Which is
I think
understandable. Like, you know,
completely.
students, we have debt, we have living costs. I'd like to also touch on the kind of work you choose. And so it's hard at the beginning, I know, but try to choose work that will help you create the sort of portfolio to leapfrog you into the next job. So when you're creating a portfolio, I think it's so important to ask yourself the real question if you want to be pursuing this kind of work or not. Because if it's something that you absolutely hate, but you're just doing for the money, sure, maybe 1 or 2 gigs, it's fine. But eventually you're going to keep attracting the same kind of clients if that's the only thing you have in your portfolio. And so I rather turn down the job, maybe live cheaply for a while, and curate my portfolio to the kind of work I want to do. So you're kind of attracting those sorts of clients who see their vision already in your work.
Excellent advice. And speaking of that, can you talk about some of the projects that you're working on, both professional and personal, so that we can get a sense of what your passion is?
Sure. So I really pride my lifestyle where because I've been freelancing for so long, I've been able to work from home and travel mostly to visit family in Asia. And so I'll take my work setup with me. And my partner and I, we spend a lot of time outside playing. We live in Vancouver. It's very beautiful here. And so that's sort of where we keep our mental and our physical health in check. And so when I'm picking projects, I actually tend to lean more towards what I like to paint. So for Isola, it's a lot of nature, a lot of lighting. I know that it's a small team. This is also important, the kind of team you get to collaborate in. It's good to do some research, to ask around the industry what sort of references you could get with your future colleagues, if that's possible. So currently I'm coloring a few books I can't really talk about. They're mostly fantasy, heavy in nature, very cool. And also I just started drawing my first book with a fellow colorist here in Vancouver. We are currently drawing a middle grade graphic novel, and it's a story about little girls and dogs. And I never thought I'd be so into it, but it turns out that it's a really fulfilling and satisfying thing. And so I think that by drawing my personal stuff, which is all these cutesy things, it attracted, the kind of interests. It attracted people who wanted to see their works translated into these cute drawings. And so I was able to combine that as well. Yeah.
Wow, great. So, it really sounds to me like you've integrated your work and life very well.
I try to.
Sure. And maybe can you give me a sense of just what your daily routine is?
My daily routine. So my partner and I both work from home. And so we get up really early to try and get some exercise in before we work. So that could range from a run to we tend to go rock climbing. But nowadays we just mostly walk around the neighborhood since everybody's under quarantine and kind of cautious. And generally I'll put in 2 shifts. I'll try and break up my day so that, because I'm freelancing, I'll have multiple projects. So I'll break up my mornings into one project, take a long break so that I'm refreshed, come back and work on my second project. And if I need a third shift, then that sort of goes into the night. But then I make sure that I get, I end early so that I could unwind, get some proper sleep, and rinse and repeat.
Right.
All week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you take off certain days? Do you have a weekend, or do you
I'm really bad at that. I'm taking so many breaks during the day. I actually found like a practical tip I could give people is to get a calendar. And I might get a little too obsessive about planning and time management, but it's for a reason. It's because I thought I could do everything in my own head and stay on top of emails and all my projects. But I think I was overwhelmed after I burned out. And so I actually have a calendar to schedule in my breaks. Otherwise, I don't understand concept of time and time dedicated per project. And so the calendar is useful for allocating work per day and also the breaks, and it just keeps track of, like, if you're going to put exercise in or if you're going to put, you know, holidays in. It's nice to see ahead of time. So that would be one for sure, an advice I would give. I mean, it's good to start in school as well because you have to stay on top of your assignments.
For sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one of the challenges of being a freelancer is you feel like you always have to be on. You always have
Yeah.
to be answering emails or answering texts, because you never know when the next job is. But again, I think it goes back to your point of like picking and choosing what work you want to do. It's also picking and choosing when you have time off,
Yeah.
you know? Otherwise, you're always working.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're always working on our computers as well and on our phones. And so our scrolling on social media becomes part of networking and work as well. So we never actually shut off, which
Yeah.
was a problem for me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But a necessary thing to do. There needs to be that shut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a new crop of grads this year, you know, who graduated in May, and we had our first online graduate showcase, which was really great. And I'm just wondering for any grads out there who are entering into, well, because you're primarily working in illustration now, it sounds like, what's your advice for them entering into this world right now, in the work world?
I'd say put yourself out there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Build a professional looking social media platform / website as your portfolio. Be nice to everybody. You don't know who you'll be working with in the future. Be authentic, and that is with the stuff you're creating and also the type of work you're attracting. You don't want to bite off, like you don't want to, if you don't like painting space techie sci-fi, like don't put any of that in your portfolio, you know, even if it looks good as a school assignment. This is what I learned really quickly. It was like I thought I wanted to attract more clients, so I'll put in all these cool things as assignments I did in school, but when it came time to actually doing it as a job, I hated it. I hated it so much. So I think that conventions, hopefully when they open up, is something that people go to even network with the community. Look at other graduates' works as well, because that's the pool that employers are looking at. So you want to be realistic about where you stand in the entire pool of people who have your skill set, and have a game plan. Is what I think is my biggest advice, is like, do your research with your career, understand what you're getting into, whether you want it or not, plan ahead.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering too, what you think of the kind of the comic book / graphic novel industry right now, and where you feel it's going.
Oh my gosh, I'm actually so horrible with actually knowing the tea in the comic world, but all I'm getting a sense of right now is there's like a new wave possibly of young adult / middle grade books or interest, because I think that uh, the market in general is just getting broader. So there's going to be a broader audience, broader demand for this. So you don't have to feel like you are limited to doing a certain style when you graduate, or you have to work with the top 5 publishers, comic publishers. There are so many avenues you can go down. There's children's book illustration. There's children picture books if you don't want to draw sequential. There's online comics. There's self-funded things. There's just so many different things you could do. And I think that it's worth looking into your favorite artists and maybe emailing them or finding a blog where they've written about their journey and see if you can emulate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I really see that too. I mean, my son, who's in high school, gave me one of his textbooks, which was a graphic novel about the history of the building of the railroad, and it was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, so you know, it even seems to be going into that realm, into the
Yeah.
education realm, which I think is wonderful.
I know.
Yeah, so it seems it seems to me that it is really becoming very broad, which is so refreshing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I
Yeah.
wish I was taught comics in school. Like it would be so much more exciting.
Real exactly. That's why when he showed it to me, I was like, now this is the way to learn history.
Yeah.
Right? As a graphic novel. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess my last question is for those young people starting off listening, you know, watching this interview, and they're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. What is your advice to them?
Ooh. Work hard and be prepared to keep working hard forever.
I hear some laughter in the background too.
It's a grind, but it's worth it if you really love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, know what you're getting into.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Right.
it does not sound so positive, but I think that it's just been such an interesting, fun ride. If and I know uh, maybe you just gotta be really sure of it. And if you're not sure, it's fine. It's fine to switch. I think that most people think this is the end if you end up not liking it, but I think it's totally okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think so too. You know what? Don't be afraid to go after stuff.
Yes,
Right?
way better put.
Well, this was really great to talk to you, and you know, I think this is you know, that you've given some good tips and advice, and so if people want to see more of your work, where should they go?
They could go to msassy.k.com,
Okay.
or I'm on social media, not as often as I should, but I still post when I can.
Okay.
Um,
And what's your handle?
it's M.Sassy.K.
Okay, and
Yeah.
that's Instagram and
Instagram, on Twitter. I post sometimes on my Facebook, but
okay.
that's the personal stuff. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'll also add that here so people will know how to find you and look at your work and follow you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to keeping it, you know, up to what you're doing and seeing volume 2 of Isola come out.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be July, right? 2020.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just went to the printers a few weeks ago.
Exciting. Great. All right. Well, thanks, Michelle. Enjoy Vancouver and your hiking around.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and be great to touch base with you in the future and see what you're working on then.
For sure. Maybe I'll swing by the school when I visit Toronto sometime.
Please do. We really like that. Okay. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.